Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Life Chat with Viv and Phil. Vilma, wasn't last week's show really informative?
It was. It was. I listened to it again and I was learning or catching some things that I didn't even got the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I was very impressed with Jay and what he had to say about nonprofit organization and the work that they're doing with Charity Crossing,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to find individuals. I made a lot of phone calls and trying to get individuals to get involved with them, and I'm just excited about the connections that we're making right now. And this week, we're talking more about volunteering. And because of the fact of the pandemic, we mentioned that last week that we're going to continue the conversation because there's more um, avenues or more programs that we need to visit and take it from different angles. And so, I think that we're going to have a great show. And I know we'll have a great show this week. And if you want to introduce our lovely guests, go.
All right. And I think we will be having a great show myself. And I am very excited because I as much as I can learn about nonprofit organization and volunteering, the more I will have a better understanding of what these great individuals do. And going on to introduce our guests for this evening, we have Aaron Klein and Danielle Martin Moffett, and I will allow them to give a little bit more about themselves. So on behalf of Vivian and myself, I want to welcome you both to this podcast, and I am grateful that you did say yes when Vivian asked. So thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron,
Welcome, ladies.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Aaron, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit more than just your name?
Sure. So my name is Erin. I live here in Delaware, and I work for the statewide programs for children who are deafblind. So I've been doing this job for probably about 12 years now. And we are an outreach of the Department of Ed. I work for the local school district, and every state in the United States actually has their own deafblind program. So I work for Delaware's deafblind program, and we really work with individuals who are birth to 21, who are all deafblind. They have varying degrees of vision loss and hearing loss. With most of them have severe disabilities and different syndromes, and a lot of them are very medically complex, but it's been a joy to work with them. So like I said, I've been doing that for about 12 years now, and we do a combination of working in the home and in schools and in different nursing facilities. So I've learned quite a lot. So it's been a great, great journey.
Wow. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Well, I'm Danielle Martin Moffett, and I'm married and I have 4 children, 2 grandchildren. I have a house full during this COVID pandemic. So this is a refresher to be with 4 people, 4 adults. And so we started, about 10 years ago with an organization called Arising Ministries. And one of the outreaches of Arising Ministries is Hope and a Future Project, where we just love being in the community and volunteering and helping those who, sometimes can seem marginalized in our community, right? Kind of I know you've experienced that too, Aaron, right? There's sometimes there's that marginalization. And so in our case, we help single young moms. Most of them are teenage mothers or college age mothers. This was an unexpected pregnancy, for sure. And what happens with that is sometimes the field is not level for them anymore, right? The education gap even more particularly widens extremely. So less than 2% of teen moms who have a baby by the age of 18 do not graduate college, and they stay in high school. That's one. And then if they can then get into college and then stay in college, it's difficult, it's hard. So what we have understood is there's a three-prong approach to enabling them, to give them a better shot at staying in school. Let's just say that, staying in college. That is scholarships. And we are delighted that so many people believe in this cause and they help give towards those scholarships. Also, there is mentoring. So every single mom and their children get a one-on-one mentor. And last but not least, we do life skills training so that you don't have to wait 4 to 6 years to experience the lifting up, but at least 6 times a year, we have life skills workshops so that every single family can put it in to place the information that's given. It's real time and able to use it for the betterment of their family and our community.
Awesome. We really wanted to, the weeks that we did, it's the 3rd time we're doing, right, Vilma? On highlighting nonprofit organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And we felt that it was important for our audience to also realize that, there's a need when it comes to people who are disabled.
Mm-hmm.
There's a need for young adults who, they started college or whatever it may be, but they're teenagers and they're found, that they're going to be a mom in a couple of months and how hard it is. And we really wanted to highlight that, that this thing is really happening, that if you can get involved, it doesn't matter on what sphere when it comes to people who are disabled. And it doesn't matter what sphere with young people, that we all need to get involved, especially now that people are starting up with mental health. They're feeling like they're alone. They're feeling that no one cares. And then now with the people who are disabled, I keep on saying disability versus disabled, they're indoor, or, I'm sure, Erin, you're going to explain more what challenges they may have, but we really wanted to highlight that this week and let people be more aware, because we're talking about life, and that's things that's going on in life when it comes to people who are disabled. It's come to individuals who are young and pregnant and who think that they don't have a future, who think that the world will shun them, who thinks that, how am I going to care for this child, and what doors or avenue there is for them. So let's jump right in.
And I think Erin probably will correct you about saying the word disabled, because I don't think
that's
a correct term to use. But Erin you can tell us what it is. Physically challenged, mentally challenged.
Yeah, it's definitely different for pretty much any disability, I would say. We call it person first language. So if you're talking about somebody who might have a hearing loss, you always put the person first. So instead of saying an autistic child, you would say that child who has autism. So you're really putting the focus on the child and the person versus the negative, the disability. But I've heard all kinds of stuff. Sometimes we'll say uniquely abled or differently abled. One big thing we do still use the term visual impairments for the kiddos that I work with that have vision loss, but we no longer use the term hearing impaired, because that definitely focuses more on the hearing, the impairment loss. So we say hard of hearing or deaf. So those are the more PC terms for that. But yeah, so thank you, Vilma.
Well, thank you for the question. Thank you for educating us.
There's a lot of grace out there. Don't worry. Yeah.
So what made you choose this path? Was it accidental, or was it a calling that you had, that you decided to work in this area? What made you choose this?
A little bit of both. So I would say, really what happened was I always kind of had a fascination with American Sign Language. I thought that that was just the coolest thing, and I always wanted to learn that. But when I ended up going to college, I started doing special education. I've loved working with kids, and I've always kind of had a knack just for working with kiddos who are differently abled. So I started doing special ed, and then at the program I was at, I noticed people around campus were signing all the time, and I was always like, how's everybody learning sign language? Well, I ended up finding out that my college had a deaf studies program. So my senior year of college, I changed my major and started working towards my degree of deaf studies. And once I graduated, I was kind of like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I just know I like sign language, and that's kind of all there is to it. So I applied for all kinds of jobs, anything that had to do with sign language or working with deaf and hard of hearing folks. That's what I was doing. So I ended up getting a job at a small nonprofit down in right outside of DC called the American Association for the Deafblind. Teeny tiny organization. There were only 4 of us, and I was the only hearing sighted person. All of my coworkers were deafblind, well, some degrees of deafblindness. So it really put my sign language skills to good use. And that kind of opened my world from just deafness to the deafblind community. And so I loved it. I learned so much, but really my whole world was all adults there, working with adults. And my passion was really always for children. So while I was still working there, I happened to get an email from an old professor at my college, and it was for a master's program out in Utah doing early intervention with infants who are deafblind. So I thought, how much more perfect could I get? I'm still in the realm of deafblindness, but now I'm working with infants and kids. So within a couple months, I ended up moving out to Utah, and I got my master's doing early intervention with infants who are deafblind. So I did that, and it was an incredible experience. It was a master's degree condensed to a 1-year program, so it was crazy in my time out there. But I knew I wanted to come back close to home. So I ended up just applying for jobs in a lot of the deafblind projects throughout the East Coast. And I wound up here in Delaware. So it was totally different than I was expecting. I think I was kind of expecting when I was coming here that it was kind of like Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller, that these little ones would be totally deaf and totally blind, and I would be signing in their hands. And it was just going to be this beautiful experience. And boy, was I surprised my first couple of weeks of my job. I didn't realize that really I hardly use sign language at all in my job anymore. Most of my kids have pretty severe disabilities, and they're even just trying to understand that there's a person in the room, or even reasons why they would communicate. A lot of them have a lot of medical involvement. So a lot of them have trachs and feeding tubes. So that realm was so different than what I was expecting, but I praise God for it now, because, you know, he helped me to stick with it and really learn it. And I think I changed a lot of my expectations too, because I thought I was going to come in and, you know, I would get to know the kids within a couple days or so and know what to do. And I realized that it definitely takes time to build relationships and set those expectations and learn about the kids. But so in a roundabout sort of way, that's how I fell into deafblindness and really early intervention.
That's a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And you're in it for what, 12 years?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be bold enough to say you are thoroughly enjoying it.
I am. I
For 12
absolutely.
years.
I've learned so much. It's such a joy. I mean, not only the teams that I work with, because like I said, I'm in schools, I'm in homes, I'm in nursing facilities. We go to doctor's appointments. So I've met so many incredible people who have such a passion, and incredible families. And even the kids themselves have taught me so much. So I'm definitely blessed to be in this job.
You can tell how happy she is. She's just exciting, and you know, she's like, joy, and I did this and I did that. After 12 years, still have that same passion and that joy. You know, that says a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead,
Thanks,
Danielle.
Deb.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so Danielle, how did you come up with Hope on the Future project? How from Arising Ministry, what made you decide to do this?
You know, kind of like what Aaron said, that, you know, God was in it. God was in it. I mean, I didn't know at the time, 6 years ago, actually 7 years ago now, that we were starting Hope in a Future Project, that this is what was going to happen. As a matter of fact, there was a background. The reality is that I was raised by a single mother, mother of four, and she was a teen mom, and she wanted to make sure that every one of her children went to college. This was like absolutely a requirement of hers, and that if you didn't go to college, you would have to get a full-time job and live on your own. Okay, I think she was trying to make a point, but education was important to her. And as a matter of fact, that she went back to college when I was in sixth grade, and I would help her with math, right? This is how important, a sixth grader helping a college student, right? But this was important, and she saw her other friends and families achieve a college education, but because she was a teen mother, she didn't feel like she could go because she had to pay, you know, bills and take care of her children. Um, so as we were in high school, she kept pushing us towards that. And I'm happy to say that, you know, all four of us went to college and got our graduate degree. Now, years later, when we wanted to help in the community, all of a sudden, you know, this burden, if you will, this compassion kind of came back. I remembered my mother, and I remembered her struggles, and then we all got together. There's a board of directors that we talked about how can we help the community, and one of them was helping single moms and their children. And we said, well, how can we do this? We're starting from ground zero. Is there any other programs out there like this, you know? And so we started investigating, trying to figure out what was here in the state of Delaware. And we saw some that were close to it, like daycares for single moms and dads, or high school programs for teen moms. And we were like, but where's the college programs for teen moms? We couldn't find any in the state of Delaware. So we thought, well, there's such a thing as a grassroots organization. We're going to try something. We're going to just step out in faith and believe that when God pointed this out, that it's his vision, and we're going to try to achieve his vision. So we started out with three young ladies. And as a matter of fact, one of those three young ladies was my daughter, who also went off to college in her freshman year with purity ring and all, every kind of church teaching that there was. She loved God. She had plans to wait until marriage. And she got down there in the elements. She had no idea what was happening to her. She fell in love, and oh, you know how that goes. And so in her case, she came back and she told us that she was pregnant. And what was amazing was that God was already speaking to us. Not that we started it yet, but he was already speaking to us, because we had a single but not alone conference. And we're like, why are we having a single but not alone conference? None of us but one are single. Wait a minute, what's going on? But it was an urgent requirement that God had. And the weekend that she came home to tell us that she was pregnant was the weekend of the conference. Because only God can do something like that. Right. And so as we went along, a few years were passing as we were designing this program. And as we looked at some programs also around the United States of America, there may not have been one in Delaware, but were there any in the United States? We found one other program that we thought that was a good model. And we proceeded to talk with them, engage with them to see how they got started and how we can get started. And, you know, I am glad today to say that I think we started in 2014 officially, and we're still going now in 2021. As a matter of fact, this is scholarship time when we raise funds for scholarship in January, because they just started back in their spring semester for a new class coming up. Our 2021 class. We're recruiting for scholars. We're recruiting for mentors. We're also raising funds for the next group of scholars that come around. I mentioned before, there are scholarships, mentors, and workshop leaders we're also recruiting for, as well as benevolent funds. Because especially with COVID, we realized that the need became great food was a need because many people, many of the teen moms, the mothers in our program lost their jobs because most of them were in the service industry. And then their parents also lost their jobs. It was kind of crazy for a while. We had to dig deep and then proceed to provide food cards, and unemployment was so slow, so we had to help pay rent, and we had to just to keep them afloat so they wouldn't drop out of college, because we know any excuse will do, but it's specifically when it's this critical, like putting food in your children's mouths and keeping a roof over their head. So I hope that wasn't too much, but there you go.
No, that's great. That's great. And now, being that you brought that up, Danielle, how was it? Did you have the funds already available, or you had to try to raise funds, especially during the pandemic, for, you know, the rent, the supplies, and so forth? How did you come across? Did you already have the funds available, or did you have to actually go out and raise more funds for that?
Both. You know, we have some very, very generous individuals. We are a faith-based organization, and so most of our donations are through individuals. And with that, for the last 6 years, we have had fundraisers. Like, we have an annual gala, which we thought we weren't going to be able to do in 2020, but we ended up having an online virtual gala, which, if anybody's interested, is on YouTube. Hope in a Future Project, you can just look it up, and you can kind of get more information about our organization. We were raising funds that way. We had some funds in the bank, which we try to be very responsible with the giving that people have given over the years. Matter of fact, we only have one person who's hired, and that's me. Everybody else is a volunteer. So we try to, and I get a very, very low amount on purpose, because we want most of that money, by far 95% of that money, to go to the need in the community and these families. And so absolutely both. We continue to raise, we continue to save, we continue to give out the money, and we continue to ask for donations. We had a donation drive this Christmas season. It used to be that we used to buy a lot of the Christmas gifts, but with up from organizations, churches, and Vivian, I know you were in charge of one of them, that proceeded to help us with some of that. And so we try to partner with organizations as well, so that where they're strong, we try to proceed to still give to our scholars and their children as needed.
Yeah. Wow. Excellent. Well, you guys are doing such a fantastic work. I feel like a slacker when I listen to all you're doing. So, question for you, Danielle. Now, for the students that you help, the teen moms, is it to complete all 4 years of college, or is it a year? Is it 2 years, or are they able to complete all 4 years by the organization, assisting?
Right. So our goal is to first motivate teen moms, especially if they're in high school, to graduate high school. That's our first. Sometimes before the pandemic, we used to go into the high schools through the guidance counselors, and we would encourage them, give them hope, to show them that there is a way forward. Their dream that they used to have is the dream they can keep having. They just have another person or two that they can carry along with them with this journey. And then we help them get into college. And our goal is not to just help them get in. That's a great goal. But we do hope that they go through. So a lot of our students go to a 2-year university, and some of them go to a 4-year university. And so, I'm happy to say that we've had quite a few graduates. As a matter of fact, one of them just graduated the end of this December of 2020 from Del Tech's nursing program. We have another one that's going to graduate in May from a nursing program at Del Tech as well. We have one that's going to graduate from Wilmington University this May, and We have one that just got into the nursing program at Delaware State University. So exciting that God is just helping them through. He's enabling this vision to flourish. And of course, we've had graduates in the past, but this year it's going to be pretty amazing how we're able to see them go through this entire process and fulfill their dream. Yeah. You know, what's great about it is not just their dream, but they impact the community big time when they are able to fulfill their dream. And then they're an example for their children and for others' children as well.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Thank you.
So what about you, Erin? How did the pandemic affect your organization?
Well, it greatly affected us. Well, we haven't been in school since March. Of course, you guys know, as soon as, COVID started, everything went remote, which has been extremely challenging for my little ones in that they don't have much vision and much hearing. So when everything is over the computer, it's incredibly hard for them to access. So it's different per kid because, like I've mentioned before, they're not all totally deaf and totally blind. Some have, a little bit of hearing. Some might have, a little bit of vision, depending on the positioning. So my kids, we just try to use their amplification. So if they have hearing aids, we try to do that. But Zoom has been Zoom is pretty much what most of my teachers use with the kids. So that a lot of the computers that they have are Chromebooks, and unfortunately Chromebooks, because those are the ones that were given out by the district, don't have great compatibility with hearing aid technology. So the sound component can be really, really hard for our kids. So we've tried to make as many accommodations as humanly possible, that we can, just so they can access it more. The trickiest thing is probably that a lot of my kids learn through touch. So they don't have what we call incidental learning, where we can just kind of, look around and see how other people are learning, or, just basic stuff that if I have a question, I raise my hand. So our kids do a lot of different behaviors because they don't have that incidental learning. So they really need things brought to them. So if I was teaching them about what a cow is, a lot of them might not be able to see the picture of a cow or hear a moo. So the best thing for them is to actually go on a field trip and experience an actual cow, what it feels like, what it sounds like. So that's really how they learn. So that's, again, probably been one of the biggest challenges, is that we can't have those real life experiences, bringing the objects to them and letting them really build those concepts around the content that we're teaching them. But I got to tell you, we've had the most amazing families, and the teachers that I work with and the nurses that I work with, they're like the unsung heroes of this whole pandemic, because truly, my kids would really have a challenging time accessing anything unless they had a person sitting right next to them. So we really depend highly on the parents to be in the sessions or their nurses to be in the sessions. And they have been amazing. They help with the technology. So a lot of the kids that I work with use what's called a voice output device. So they don't actually speak with their voice, but they can hit, it's almost like a little button. And some of my kids who might have a little bit of head movement can turn their head to hit a button, or they might lift up an arm to hit the voice output. And that kind of is their voice. So it gives the answer to the question, or says, I want more, or I'm finished. A lot of the kids that I work with also use photographs to communicate with. So parents have been wonderful in sending us pictures of, different things around their home that we can make and send pictures to. So it's been a lot of accommodating and a lot of materials, and just kind of thinking outside the box. And I think in the beginning, we were just kind of scrambling, trying to figure out, do we have the materials? Can we make them from home? Where do we get stuff from? Do we send it? Can we drop it off? So we've definitely learned a lot in these past couple months, and I feel like we're at the point now where we're kind of learning more and more, and it's getting a little bit easier. And I think just all those practical accommodations too, like for my kids to better be able to hear something. I might tell whoever's in the background, hey, would you mind turning off that TV in the background? It's making a lot of noise. And I know if the kid can hear that, then they're probably not able to hear me talking. Or, even visual accommodations. A lot of my kids have a hard time if there's a lot of complexity, is what we call it. So in the background, so some of my of course, you know, you're teaching from home. So you might have a bookcase in the background or a dog walking past or just all of those things. So my teachers have put, you know, pretty much like black backgrounds. So there's a solid background right behind them. So the kid only has to focus on their face and that's it. So yeah, so we've made a lot of accommodations. We've learned in a quick period of time. I feel like that was another struggle too, going into this, is that it was kind of, you had about a week to learn how to take everything that you were doing in the classroom and do it from home. So we've relied on each other a lot, and yeah, it's definitely been a learning experience, but a great one.
A good one.
I have a lot of positives that have come out of it too.
Yeah, that's excellent, excellent. I think about the complaints that we hear about, you know, being at home and going remote, and these are people who are able-bodied, no physical disability, and we complain, including myself. Um, you know, I'm trying to get adjusted to Zoom. I'm zoomed out, but I can just imagine without, you know, with you and your group having that extra layer to penetrate, you know, that I won't complain anymore after today, because you don't think about it, you know, you don't think about it. We go on in our lives, we complain if there is no cold water in the refrigerator. We complain if the lights go off for 5 minutes when we're watching our favorite show. But just this brings me back. It's a humbling experience, brings me back to the fact that, you know, there are people who are less fortunate, so much less fortunate, and the extra step that these teachers, you know, people like you, Erin, and your group have to do to accommodate learning, you know. And for those of you out there who are listening to the podcast, I hope you are taking away this as well, as I'm learning. So I don't want to hear you complaining the next time, okay? All right. All right. You know, thank you, Erin, for what you're doing. You're an unsung hero as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that, Velma.
Thank you.
So did you get any pushbacks from the family in regards to what they, you know, being that they have to help you now to plan your curriculum or whatever it may be? Did you get any pushbacks from the family?
Yes, I can say pushback, but I can say it in more of a positive way, because it's not like I just don't want to do it. It's just I'm absolutely spent and I don't know how to juggle all of these things. I don't know how to work from home full time and take care of my children and prepare meals and worry about the nursing schedule and their health and how to do it all. So it's almost like incredibly overwhelmed. I would say I have a caseload right now of about 15 students, and I have 2 that have not participated in remote learning or hybrid or anything since last March. Wow. So that's been a real struggle. You know, I can do as much as we can, just touch base with the families. There's some families that I'll just try to type up a couple suggestions or try to call and just say, hey, you know, during your daily routines, why don't you try this or why don't you try this? So it's not like they have to commit to being on Zoom every single day. So that's been, I would say, the biggest pushback. Even some nurses that I work with, there are some nurses who say, my job is medical, it's not educational, so I'm not going to help out with that. I've had a couple nurses who will open up the laptop and they will log our kids onto Zoom and then they leave the room. So that can be, you know, the kids can't really access. And I had one little guy who I can't remember what happened. He had like sunk down in his chair and the computer was like right here. And all I could see was the top of his head. And I was like, excuse me, is anybody there? So yeah, it's just a lot that they're trying to go through, that the families are going through. So it's like you were saying, Velma, there's so many different perspectives to this that it's hard. You know, I think in the beginning it was easy to be like, why aren't you participating? I don't get it. That's frustrating. The kids have a right to education, and they don't want to be at home. But the longer it went on, you just realize how much people are dealing with while they're at home. It's not just, I just don't want to get up and put my kid on the computer. They're really trying to balance a lot.
Yes, I agree with you. There is so much that you just don't take into consideration. And I don't think that every person is lazy or every person just wants a handout, but like it is a lot, and it gets overwhelming at times, when you don't know
Absolutely.
what to do. So
Mm-hmm.
Can I jump in real quick? Because
absolutely.
one of our scholars has a child who is high on the autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, and COVID and schools closing, she is a mother who has to stay home, which means she can't work, right? She
Yeah.
can't. And so she's home with her son. She's an excellent mother, which is an excellent mother. And so she absolutely loves him and loves working with all the teachers and nurses and the organizations in order to be able to give him the kind of education, the kind of compassion, the kind of forward movement. He just turned 7, and so that's a great thing. And so working with the teachers is something that is so important and has just elevated her ability. I mean, she wants to make sure that her child is good. She doesn't always know everything to do, but she wants a teacher. But it also caused her not to be able to work regularly. And so she's had to do all these odd jobs, like a DoorDash type, all these little odd jobs. And so that inconsistent money. And unfortunately, she also became homeless. And ended up having to live with different relatives and friends for a while. And so thank goodness they've landed somewhere where they have a level of consistency and then able to use the Wi-Fi and computers and everything that was there. And so I'm just agreeing with Erin that COVID has really made it difficult for teaching. It has made it difficult for some families who don't have a steady and consistent home or home life. And you have to work it out. And by the grace of God, things are worked out now. And prayerfully, it'll stay that way until school is opened again.
Yeah, and tagging off that, Danielle, that is definitely one of the biggest perks, I would say, of this entire pandemic is having the opportunity to work with the families, because how many times are kids in school for 8 hours a day, and you might send home a homework assignment or a progress report, but I just feel like you don't always get a good picture of what exactly you're working on and how to do it and how to carry it over at home. But this has really helped because now we're with families all day, every day, showing them exactly what the kids are working on, how to position it, how they best see, how they hold their head when they're looking. Just all those things that you probably wouldn't normally see. So it's been a real blessing getting a chance to spend so much time with the families, the nurses, and even the school teams, getting the chance to team with them and meet a lot more often than we otherwise would have the opportunity.
Go ahead, Velma.
Okay, so you mentioned about a blessing by being able to observe what goes on in the home. Now, I'm not sure if with your population, if there is any problem with abuse, like physical abuse, verbal abuse, that some teachers that we spoke to earlier podcasts, I think it was, that that was a concern because they were not able to, the kids were not coming where they could see them, because sometimes when the abuse is there, it is discovered. The child is behaving a different way, or they see marks on them. Do you encounter any problems like these?
I have actually in the past. I mean, as a school teacher, we are mandated reporters. So, and because I work with a lot of birth to 3, I do pretty much a lot of home visits. So I'm in homes every week. So in the past, I have had situations like that where I've witnessed some drug use going on and some neglect, a couple things, you know, different situations that I have been mandated to report it for the best interest of the child. But since we've been remote, that has definitely been a concern, and people are definitely looking, and, you know, we're following the proper protocol. But for me, there really hasn't been, you know, sometimes if I get off of the Zoom and me and the teacher might be a little bit concerned, we might talk about it ourselves and just say, hey, did you notice this? Or how did you feel about, you know, that situation? So we might talk about it. And then if it gets to the point where we're concerned, but maybe not necessarily to the point of reporting anything, again, this has really strengthened our relationship with families. So sometimes we will just reach out to the family and say, hey, can we just meet real quick? Can we just talk about what's going on and how you're feeling? And can we offer any support? So, so that's been the great thing, is that I feel like we've definitely built relationships with families through this, to have more of an open conversation about what's happening at home and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
And Danielle, with your ladies, how many ladies have gone through your program, and how many ladies are currently in your program?
Well, what we try to do is we try to keep our numbers small from year to year, because the ability to personalize retention is important. So right now we have 8 ladies in our program. Over the course of the last 6 years now, we probably could say that we had about 30 young ladies in our program directly benefiting from our program. But we also have other groups too. So when we talk about our program, we're talking about our scholarship program. That's what I'm talking about. We also have what's called a Hope group. And that group is for any single parents. It can be any age. You don't have to be in education. You can participate in our workshops, in our life skills training. You get the ability to interact with all the other single moms, and the advice they give between each other is really awesome about the help that's out there, and just the, you know, I've been through it, I can tell you, kind of and lift each other up. And with that, we're talking about over 100 families over the last years, because you're adding in the Hope group there as well. So that's a pretty exciting component, which we haven't been able to do as much because of COVID-19. Most of our workshops have been in person. With our smaller group, with the people who are in our scholarship program, we've been having Zooms, of course, and that's been working out as well. But the larger groups are slowed down because of COVID. But we hope to start that back up sometime this year and be able to be an influence.
Awesome.
Do all these students graduate, or is there any reason that you would terminate a scholarship or terminate?
Yeah, really good question. Because the reality is there's a reason why less than 2% graduate college. There's a reason, right? It's difficult. It is not easy. Matter of fact, you know, when, and there's not that all the time, there's not that much support. So maybe there's not much home support for it. Some people think that, hey, you got yourself into this, now figure it out, get a job, forget your dreams, life is over. I mean, that's some of the viewpoint of a lot of families, or, you know, some friends, etc., because it is hard. Time management is hard. That's one of the areas that we really try to work on, is time management, because it is hard being a 19-year-old with an 8-month-old on your hip, a book bag on your back, and trying to then go to work in a uniform that only pays minimum wage. So it just doesn't feel good day after day after day after day, and especially those who don't even have the father along with them for this crazy journey that they are on. And so, yes, not everybody completes their college degree. Not everybody does it, but we are probably around 70 to 75% of those who continue to matriculate through. We were at 85%. We're probably about 75 and 70% now. We work really hard to keep in touch, and our mentors do a fantastic job keeping in contact with our scholars and helping them along their journey. But yes, we've had some who've dropped out. But the amazing thing is this, we've had some who dropped out, but then I get a phone call a year later, 2 years later, saying, hey, is it possible for me to come back in the program? And I love them to say I have compassion for them. And sometimes I say, listen, if you do me a favor, you apply for school or take another class, because you're probably still, able to still go to that same school. Do one class, even 2 classes, however many you want to do, and then complete that semester. Show me that you're serious about it. Come on to our workshops, all of that, and let's go through and let's see whether or not life has changed for you in your desire, because it has to be their desire first, and then we go alongside and we help support them. And we've had much support. I know Vilma's been a support for years and years, and we thank you for that, and so many others. Oh my goodness, so many others, and they have challenges, no doubt. Daycare is one of the challenges, right? Sometimes you have you go to school during the day, you got your job at night. Trying to find a night daycare provider is extremely hard to find, and so we have to hopefully help them with that, or talk with their families, try to get some support so they can continue on that. That's one of the biggest issues that we have, is just daycare while they're in school, and daycare while they are working. Yeah.
Wow. What is a typical scholarship range that you do?
Now, thank you for asking that question. What we do 3 different kinds of scholarships. The first is for those who are attending a 4-year university, like Kiera, who attends, Delaware State University. So we give about $2,400 a year for her to go to school. But of course, books, fees, and all of those are also things that we give as well. And emergency funds, or for a person who's at a 2-year university. Let's say that's Aaliyah, who's at a 2-year university. Our gift is based on need first. We've got to be really clear. We don't just, we want to make sure we help those who have a need. There's some who don't have a financial need, but they have an emotional need. They have a help them through the journey need. And so after financial aid, after that, we try to help them get the most financial aid they can get. And then we help close the gap on their tuition. And so $1,200 for a year for the 2-year universities, and then $600 a year for books and fees. And so, but as you know, that's good. That's for scholarships. And so we have some individuals and some organizations who have given that entire amount. We even have one college who has given us 2 4-year all tuition, all fees paid, because they believe in this organization so much. And then we have some individuals who have committed to 2 or 3 years of providing that $2,400 or that $1,200. And then the rest comprises of individuals who just bless us with whatever they can, $5, $10, $25, $100, however they do it. And it all adds up so we can give it out to the young ladies and their families. And let's not forget them, because shoes, clothes, food, books, and supplies for going to school. It's not just a scholar, but we help their families as well.
Good.
Wow.
So how are you guys funded? I think you said earlier that it's a state program, Erin. I'm not quite sure. How do
A
you
little.
guys get funding?
Sure. We're actually a grant program. So like I mentioned that every state has their own, it's grant funded, but then in Delaware, we are also state and federally funded as well. So I don't know the percentages, but a good chunk is grant, but then also state. Delaware, we're the one state in the whole United States that's different than everybody else, in that we're housed under a school district. So we're actually on a lot of, every kid that I work with has what's called an IEP, an individualized education plan, or an IFSP when they're birth to 3, an individualized family service plan. And on there is where, you know, if they're getting physical therapy or occupational therapy or deafblind services, where our services are actually on there. So by law, we're mandated to provide these services, where in any other state, if you would go in the country, they're more so just kind of consultants. And they, you know, if a school district calls them in and says, hey, I have a question about this kid's vision or hearing, they might go do a, you know, a one day presentation and then not go back for a couple months or a whole nother year. Whereas here in Delaware, we're mandated to see most of our kids, we see at least once a week or twice a week, or it all depends on their need. So most of the babies we see twice a week. And then once they get into schools, then we go down to once a week. So yeah.
Good, wonderful. Vivian, I am not sure how many more questions we have, but there's one that I want to ask Danielle in particular, if to say to our listening audience, how can they, listening, they're hearing this, how can they help if they need to, or if they want to?
Well, thank you. There are several ways that you can help. One is, of course, financial, contributing to scholarships, which we are in the process of the scholarship campaign right now. They can go to hopeandafutureproject.org. And let me just say that, because sometimes when I say hope and, you know, I just want to make sure it's hope and a future project.org. They can go to that website. We also have a Cash App if anybody's interested in doing that. Some people just like Cash App better than the websites. I'm not sure why, but they do. But they can go to either one of them to donate and help towards scholarships or mentoring program or the workshop or the benevolent funds. The other thing that they can do is if they want to volunteer to be a mentor, there is a place on our website where they can go and become a volunteer. And there are a whole list of volunteer opportunities that they can proceed to say they're interested in. We would contact them back, give them an application, talk to them about it, and they can make a decision about how they want to help, either being a mentor, workshop leader, or helping out with some of our fundraising or our annual gala, which we hope to have in person this year. It's a fantastic way of contributing as well. So hopeandafutureproject.org. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter, and of course YouTube as well.
Okay, so to our listening audience, you have no excuse. You have a lot of opportunities. You can volunteer in many different aspects to help a teenager continue their education and become all that they were created to be. And I strongly believe in helping, you know, others. A lot of people just need a hand up, not a hand out. They just need a hand up so that they can continue their journey. So many of us have fallen along the way, and we sit there and people come by and they, you know, some literally kick you out of the way, and some, like the Good Samaritan, will stop and help, and like the others, they will look on the other side. But this is one way, as Christians especially, and individuals in particular, that you can help somebody get up where they have fallen and continue their journey, because we all at one time or the other needed some help in some form or the other. No man is an island, no man stands alone.
Mhm.
So fantastic job, fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that was going to be my question. But Erin, is there a way that people can volunteer or help out with your group also?
Especially in the time of COVID, I would say
No.
not really. There's times where if people are thinking about doing an internship, that they can kind of come and observe a session. But there's not, we do have an organization called DSPA, Delaware State, I'll have to get back to you on that, where they do take donations, so that can help us to provide materials for kids, or different toys for kids, you know, different things like that. Delaware Statewide Programs Association, that's the name of it. And that's pretty much mostly just financial. Anybody who would want to donate anything is more than welcome to do that. But yeah, it's, I guess, you know, because we're a little bit more under the school district, it's harder for volunteer and anything like that. But
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, ladies. Really, I'm sorry.
Yeah. What's the greatest part of your job, Erin? The same thing is going to come for you, Danielle. In one sentence, the greatest part, the greatest.
I would say the greatest part of my job is probably, in a nutshell, getting to know these kids who are often very misunderstood and people just don't get them, and learning them, and then helping other people understand who they are and what their behaviors mean and what they're trying to communicate, because there's a real kid in each one of them. It's just a matter of finding out who they are and what motivates them and what drives them.
Wonderful. Danielle?
People like me who call them disabled, right?
No.
No, I would say just the people. I would agree. The people are so important. You know, it's helped me to keep people first, because God loves us all, and God wants us to love on people. And you know what? I may feel like they may feel like we're helping them, but in all reality, they help us just as much. And it just fulfills our life in a way that makes us smile. And we're just delighted to do part of the Lord's work in this way, in helping those who can't, who need extra help at this moment. So the people, and loving on people.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Over to my co-host.
We can't hear you, Velma. Well, I can't hear Velma. So thank you, ladies, for joining us and sharing with us. We really greatly appreciate having you guys on and sharing about your organization. And we will put in the comments our guests and our audience the information to get in touch with Danielle's organization. And also, if you want to donate to Erin's organization, we'll get the information and put it at the bottom in the comment section under our Zoom page. So thank you again, ladies, for joining us. Vilma, if you don't have anything else, because I can't hear you.
No, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Oh, okay. I'm putting in my bit of thank you to these two young ladies.
They are young.
And thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. Again, for those of you who are wondering, this is, you know, Live Chat with Viv and Bill can be seen on YouTube. You can also watch this on our Facebook page, Live Chat with Viv and Bill. And you can also see us on our website, and you can email us. And in everything, the most common is Live Chat with Viv and Bill. And you will see this scroll at the end of you watching this event. And we are also, our podcast streams on various podcasts, iHeart. We are on Stitcher. We are on Google Podcasts, and we are on Spotify. We are also on GH Radio, and we come on 7 days a week. So you can find us somewhere. Wherever you turn, there we are. We're watching. Thank you.
Thank you, lady.
Thank you.
Yes,
Yes,
you're
thank you so
welcome.
much.
Yeah, and remember, this is Life Chat with Viv and Phil. Goodbye.
Bye.